everyone. For those I didn't meet yet, I'm Florian from Moses. So, how should I put it? Oh, on it. So, yeah, it's great to be here. And thanks to Breda University for inviting me, because it really means a lot, because one of my role at Moses is to make sure that we connect industry partners with institutions, with education, universities, schools, and studios to make sure they all work together, and it makes a virtuous circle and a great ecosystem. So it's great to be here today. Just gonna put the timer on to not talk too long. So the title of the talk today is New Technologies and Workflow for VP and High Efficiency with no limits to creativity. So what does it mean? Well, we will go through different methods that we used recently, and I think could be interesting for everyone in this room. The first thing I want to talk about is hybrid virtual production, and we will demonstrate high efficiency film production with a method that combine green screen and LED walls, but not necessarily volumes that were very popular over the last 2, 3, 4 years, but maybe more smaller, medium-sized LED wall. So let's go into it. So to give you an example of how it works, I want to use a project as an example. So we met this director, Toby, and his business partner, James, and they had this very great idea of doing like, let's say, The Office meets The Wolf of Wall Street. So that was quite a funny, crazy idea, but they didn't necessarily have the time nor the budget to film in New York, right? And it was actually including a trading floor as well. So apart if you're Martin Scorsese, it's very tricky to have the budget to recreate a trading floor because we cannot film in there. So we said, well, it's great because we actually have this workflow we want you to use, which we think is an alternative to big, massive volumes. And we need a great project for that. So let's collaborate. And we did. So first of all, the whole thing has been filmed in virtual production. Doesn't mean we have to do that, but it was a way to prove that we can film the whole pilot in virtual production. So there were 7 locations created in Unreal, and we filmed in real time. And I will show you the achievements after, instead of achievements. That's basically the size of the wall we used. As you can see, it's not an LED volume. It's just an LED wall, which is on the top floor of the Moses offices. And that was enough to do close-ups and mid-shots, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Just to explain very quickly, for those who would not know yet, but I'm sure a lot of you do, how camera tracking on virtual production works. At Moses, we created, so Moses is more than 25 years, and we've been for 25 years and more creating pioneering technologies for virtual production. And at Moses, we created this technology called, as you can see here, it's called the Star Tracker. And how it works, well, as you might know, what's important when you film either in real time with green screens or with LED wall is the parallax and the fact that when you move your camera, what's in the 3D scene in Unreal updates either with the virtual environment on green or with the LED wall. And to do that, the glue between the real world and the virtual world is the tracking. So the Star Tracker is our technology, and how it works, it's pretty simple actually. You put stickers on the ceiling of your studio, and then you walk around with your tracker. You have a map of the studio, which means that you can track your camera in real time. And yes, that's the glue between the real world and the virtual world. Now that we got that, when should we use green screen and LED wall? Are they competing? Because suddenly everyone said we should think everything on LED. And sometimes when people think about virtual production, they not necessarily think about green screen anymore, even though filming in real time with green screen is virtual production. So we had an idea, and it was combining both and do all our wide shots on green screen and all our close-up on mid shots on LED wall, because they both have pros and cons, but you will see that they are very complementary. The first thing with green screen, well, if you compare it to an LED, it's quite low cost, right? Because it could be just a bucket of green or just green fabric, right? And what is nice as well with it is the fact that you have shadows on the green floor and they will be seen on the 3D scene. To oppose to that, when you have an LED wall, you have to bring set builders in to create a floor that match the virtual location, and it can sometimes take a lot of time, take a lot of money and effort as well. So green screen is still very good for that. And yeah, so taking that in consideration, LED wall is amazing for all the rest, really. And that really makes a difference for close-up and mid-shot, because if you think about it, seeing the floor on a wide shot, doing it on green screen, there's not too many issues because you're not gonna have too much what we call green spill, so the green reflection on the actors, which is a problem because you are quite far away and you're gonna see the floor. Now, when you do close-up on mid-shots, what makes a difference on the LED is that you don't have this green reflection, but you have all the advantages of LED wall, which is reflection on the skin, reflection on the glasses, on the watch, on everything that's reflective. It's more immersive for actors, of course. And for example, if you have the foreground that is blurred, it's also much easier to do it with LED. But we will see that with examples. Anyway, I think you now get the concept. We did all the close-up on the mid-shots on the LED, where the advantages are, and all the wide shots on green. This table shows they're very complementary. So, yeah, so that's what I just said with pictures. And here are some examples. So here, for example, it's a great example because he is drinking in a glass at night. You have all the reflection from New York at night in the glass, and you can be very sharp on it in a close-up, which could be difficult with green screen, or at least you need to have a very good level of keying, and it's an expertise that not everyone have. That's another good example. These hair are very white and thin, which will be very tricky with green screen. Also, the actors in the foreground are blurred and defocused, which is also something tricky to cope with green screen. So LED walls here are perfect for that. I don't know if you're gonna see this one. There's actually some smoke going out of the bucket. It's a bit hard to see, to be honest, but that's also an advantage when you have particles, smoke, etc., to use LED wall. On the other hand, on bear in mind, that's real time, and that's just a previous shot. So that's not what you're gonna see in the movie, but that's what we can see. So the scene is all in Unreal, and that's what you can see on location. That's what the directors and the director of photography can see in real time. So it's pretty cool, and that's fully virtual. So nothing is real, even this table is virtual, and it will look even better when we are re-rendering it after, but that's all previs and real time. And you can typically see that on a screen, and yeah, because the keying is done in real time. That's another example of real time as well. That's a good example because the floor here will take some time and some efforts to rebuild for a specific scene. Now it's great to use green screen for that because you can just drop it in digitally and you get all your digital advantage of virtual production. So let's talk a bit about the setup. I won't go too deep into the technical setup, but what was very interesting is that we had two duplicated packages, one on the green screen and one on the LED wall. So on the green screen and on the LED, we had two cameras that were similar. It was actually two red Raptor, and we control them directly from Unreal. So there is this, I would say, this synchronization between the real shooting on the green and on the LED, which makes that every data are triggered through Unreal. And then we can trigger the tracking, we can trigger the recording, and that's all through a plugin called VP Pro that we have in Unreal. And it makes things much easier also for post-production, actually, because it's very important to keep track of all that. Another very interesting thing is that something that is crucial for virtual production is what we call lens distortion. To make it simple, well, every lens has as you know, they have their own distortion. So the edges of your images is going to be distorted and not the same as in the center. But then it means the 3D and the virtual elements also need to be distorted. So for every lenses, we have a lens file, and it means we can apply this distortion to the graphics. The problem is that every time you change lenses, you have to do what we call tweaking, because not every lenses are the same. When you put it back, there's a bit of play that is different every time. But the fact that we use 2 Premista zoom means that we never changed the lens during the production. We only zoomed in and out, and that made a big difference to be very quick and efficient. Finally, the lighting. So we had 2 sets of lights on both sides. They were actually quite interesting lights. So there's a company called ETC Lights, and they have this very interesting technology of 8 LEDs, and it's very interesting for the skin tones because you can keep the same lighting on both sides and then just play around and tweak the skin tones. But the lighting will be the same on green and LED. And finally, we did all that in Unreal 5, actually. So all the scenes that you see here were created in Unreal. And then our goal is to make a film tool around Unreal with our plugins that we call VP Pro. So it turns all the data you need and everything you need to do focus, set extension, etc. in Unreal. And finally, what we call near time, that's for all the shots that you saw on the green screen. What you saw was a previous shot that you see in real time, but then we have a way to send all this data in the cloud where you have the same scene, but we run it at like a full blast, I will say, and we re-render in high quality. So let's say if we're shooting on the Monday, on the Tuesday morning, you will have the same scene, but re-rendered with high quality automatically. It's all done automatically, which makes it very neat and efficient. But the key was pre-production. We would not be able to be so efficient on set, and you will see the result. I'm going to that just after, without pre-production. It just took 2 months and 2 people, and not 2 months non-stop. It was sometime few days in a week, sometime after work, etc. It was discussions between the directors and our 3D artist, Gabrielle. She was creating the scenes in Unreal, and then the director was saying, oh, we could add a bit of like more lights here, and then maybe we could have this poster behind on his office, etc. Which is nice, is that that's not something you will experiment during the filming, because you don't want to have so many people waiting for you and say, okay, we are changing the scene now. That's something you can spend time doing at very low cost in pre-production. But then when you film, you have in mind what you want to do. Doesn't mean that you cannot experiment for 2 months or more in pre-production. So good pre-production is the most important, and you have time to also innovate in that. The achievements, well, it's end-to-end complete virtual production, and what we're quite proud of is that it's a crew that never used virtual production before. So it means the gaffer, the director of photography, the director, never used VP before. They play around with green screen a little bit, but never virtual production in its own. And it only took 2 weeks to kind of train them, and they came, did some tests, so it's pretty good numbers. And then I think that's quite impressive numbers. It's a 55 minutes episode containing 492 shots in 7 different locations in New York, all shot from London. The crew of 11 people, actually I think it was, if we don't include actors that also part of the crew, I think it was 9 people. And 2 weeks shoot, no overtime, no over budgets. We actually finished at 4 p.m. on a Saturday, which was pretty cool. We could just enjoy the sun in London, which is not very often. Yeah, so here is hybrid virtual production. And in that case, we created all the scenes from scratch. But now, we'll talk a bit about Gaussian splatting, which is a new way of capturing scenes, because now it means that we can also create scenes for scenes that we don't have access to or don't exist. For example, this trading floor, we can create it from scratch in Unreal. But we can also capture real scenes, real locations, and import them in Unreal after and film with green or LED. And that's what we will talk about now. So what we're going to talk about is Gaussian splatting. I'm sure a lot of you here experimented for a few years about capturing environments. It was photogrammetry first, and even some other methods before, but photogrammetry was really well known. If you played with it, you might know that it needs a lot of picture, a lot of time. Sometimes you want to combine it with LiDAR if you want to be very accurate. And it also needs a lot of processing time. But it's doable, it does great elements, but it takes a lot of time, especially if you want to do efficient production. Then came Nerf. More recently, you might have heard of it or play around with it as well, which is also very cool. It was very boosted by the AI big trend these days, and it was in fact its own neural network for every capture that you do. But again, Nerf takes a lot of time and computing power to process. It's not very easy to render in real time as well. So then came Gaussian splatting, which is actually not AI-based or neural network. So it's a bit more traditional, which is quite refreshing in some way in these AI times. What it does, I won't go too deep in details, but very simply, you have a cloud point created with your scan, which is a video that you do, and then it will take samples of images from that video, will create a cloud point, and then to connect all these dots, it will be done with Gaussian distribution. And this Gaussian can have different shape, different form, different colors, and you have this type of result. We are very realistic, but most of all, very easy to render in real time, and you can have very impressive performance in real time. So, because we like to experiment with new things and things that we think are groundbreaking for virtual production, we played around with it at Mosys, and we integrated it in our workflow. So here is an example. My colleague Pedro is in the power station. That's actually going to be the next Mosys offices. So here's a screen pic. So we still have a bit of work to do, but getting there. And Pedro walked around with a gimbal, and I think it was a GoPro or something like that. Or he did some tests also with different cameras. And I was also in France and for a convention, and we saw these nice flower shops. I said, oh, it would be a good Gaussian to do. So just took my phone out and did a scan of the environment, which is typically a 2-minute video on your phone. And that's the result. So that's directly in the software. That's all free rendered. And I'm moving through it now virtually. And that's what you get from that. And then it means that you can then take this environment, put it in Unreal, and then film in real time in that environment. So here, for example, Michael is obviously not in the power station, and we are in a green screen. And thanks to the tracking, as I said earlier, when we move our camera, we have this parallax effect with the green screen. And that's pretty good. I mean, bear in mind that was actually not very recently, it was a few months ago, so it gets better and better every day, really. That's how better it gets. And that's why we actually decided to use it in a project. And we blocked this town hall for a very small time, very small period, and we captured it. Even smaller camera, I think you've seen, it's a very small camera, it's for now, that much of quality, to capture it. And we captured the town hall of Woolwich in London, which is a very nice location. Actually, I'm thinking we could do a nice Gaussian splatting of this room as well, because it's pretty nice. So yeah, capturing. Also taking into consideration the lighting, like we discussed before. So we get all the light source, we could do it also in Unreal, put back our lighting. And then we put it on LED wall very quickly. We did that test basically last week before I come here, and we put it on the LED wall. So as you can see, that's the LED wall we have upstairs that we used for this production I told you about. Upstairs, I mean upstairs in London, in our offices. It's a small LED wall. And it looks pretty good. I mean, that's me in front of the wall, doing some random stuff. And but you can see it's pretty good. But that was just a test. But now, yesterday we redid it, and today, doing stuff. And today, we have a crew in London filming as we speak right now, and they just sent me a picture updated my PowerPoint 10 minutes ago, and it looks pretty good. So that's directly from a Gaussian splatting. So as you can see, the quality is even better because we redid it. And we think it's really gonna be next level now. Another example that is pretty cool. So that's a set that we created again in our offices. There's not really someone here. It's just a little prop. It's a joke. That we created at Moses. So we have a very nice production designers that work with us sometime on project created that. So it's a real physical element. And the video that you're seeing right now is a video that we did to feed the software that will create the Gaussian splatting. So it'll give you an idea of how you need to capture and what's the best way to capture, because that's what you put in the software to capture. This morning, Brad, you were talking also of new ways to doing it even with your phone in real time, so it's gonna be even easier. Anyway, I'm gonna skip through it, but it's almost done. We're just going one time down. And that's the software that we've been using. They're called Volinga. And what is pretty nice with what they do is that now you put your Gaussian splat with them, you create it with them, but you can now edit it. And that's pretty cool. And that's an example of it. It's really on a computer. So you can see the cloud points here. And then some cool stuff will happen. So now we splatted it, I guess. And you will see that we can actually select some objects. So the big problem with Gaussian is this floating thing in the scene, like floating particles. So now what we can do, and I hope it shows in that video at some point, yes, you can select them and remove them. And that's making also a big difference because you can clean your Gaussian and you can optimize it. So it's really quick, like here it's speed up, of course, but it's very easy to edit and to change. So that's what they were doing here in real time. Some things they can do as well is select an object in the Gaussian and move it within the scene. Things they will do it with this cable that's hanging from the roof and they're just moving it. And at some point they will do it with the origami on the desk. It's very good timing. And so, which is interesting is you see when we look for a completely different angle, it's very weird. But as soon as we come back from the position we took the Gaussian, it's very nice quality. And you see he was moving that as well. You can remove the shoes completely if you don't like them, and they disappear. And I was talking with them actually yesterday, and they announced me that they are working on relighting the scene as well, which will make an even bigger difference because now in Unreal it means that we can change our light sources and we can also match them with what we have in studios. We can film day or night with just one capture. They're also working on color accuracy and to make it more color accurate, so that's also good news. So yeah, how much time do we have? Still some time. So another thing, so we've seen hybrid virtual production is combining green screen for the wide shots and all close-up and mid shots on the LED wall. We've seen that for this one we created the scene, and the set from scratch, which is what you will probably do if you have to film in a location that either don't exist, like a sci-fi movie, the moon or whatever. Same if it's something is hard to access, for example, a trading floor or any location that is not practical to access. But then we saw that we can capture the Gaussian splatting and put it in Unreal as well. And to make it easier, we worked on a technology that does motion capture now with no suits. We think it's also gonna make things much easier, and there were different companies experimenting in that, but now we have a quality which is as good as finger tracking with no suits. So we teamed up with a company called Captury that you might know, and they do that for everything that's, for example, medical and when they need accurate mockup. So what we did is that we are providing the cameras that are needed, the hardware that is needed for that, the server as well, but also the integration in Unreal with our plugin to make it ready for film and for broadcast. So it's gonna be a lot of cool applications. I have some videos here. The first thing you want to do is to calibrate the system. So the system that you saw, actually, maybe I should explain very quickly. All these little cameras, you just put them around the space. So it could be around your LED wall or green screen. And you are able, with, I think, 8 cameras, to track up to 5 people in real time. And the first thing you need to do, as every mock-up system, you need to calibrate. So here is a video of the calibration process. That's it. So now my colleague is calibrated. It's pretty much as quick as that. And now they can interact between avatars in real time as well. And it's really making it easier. So you don't have to do a T-pose anymore and do all these kind of things, which were always a bit tricky. And sometimes drifting as well. Because sometimes some suits technology drift in the scene. This is absolute, so it means you can walk around and you're not gonna drift. And then you can do motion capture. So here are some cool examples that's all shot in a green screen. You can interact with particles in real time, which is always nice. What else can we do? Forgot what's in that video, so I'm just gonna talk over it. Yeah, so that's an interesting one as well, interaction with the 3D graphics as well, which will be great for also broadcast environments as well. And then we will see later on something that should show very soon. It's the AR graphics. And before, you couldn't walk in front or behind AR graphics. You had to track the people with some device. And now she can walk in front of it. And that also makes a great difference, because you can walk around the 3D elements. Typically, this scene we had earlier, when they were in front of this virtual meeting table, they could just walk in front of it, which they couldn't before. And I think we're gonna see finger tracking now. And so that's how accurate it is, and face tracking as well, with the same system. So yeah, it's pretty cool. What it means as well is that we can interact now with the 3D environment. So it could be with particles, it could be with smoke, it could be with anything. So here is another example of how we use Unreal for AR graphics, because everything you saw before was more like when you wanted digital backgrounds to be in a different location. Something that we do a lot also is AR graphics, and that's what we do in real time with our software VP Pro. And that's where lens distortion is important again, because especially for graphics. So it means that here in this 3D scene that is in Unreal, the only thing we are showing and rendering are these balls that are on the floor. So before, you would just have graphics and just see them and do nothing with them. As it says here, you can interact with it now. So everything is virtual here on the floor, and my colleague can interact with them in real time. That's triggered by him in real time. And the dynamic is also the dynamic you will have in the game engine, because what we do, in fact, is that we are putting a 3D character around him that you don't see. So it will be the exact same way as if you develop in game engine and you interact with elements, but you do it now in real time with real people. I think I'm good on time. So as a recap, these 3 different technologies that we think will make virtual production more efficient, and which is nice, is that instead of doing less, you can do more while reducing your cost. You can be more creative, and you can have more value creatively, which is what we are trying to achieve. And I think we did. So thank you very much. Yeah, so let's talk. I mean, here is my LinkedIn QR code if you want to chat after. If we don't have time to chat, that's why I'm happy to be here. I think we're gonna open to questions now. But if we don't have time, please reach out and send me a message if you have problems with. I'd be happy to solve them. And, yeah. Thank you.